You know, every single city on the planet has this one massive problem, a giant growing mountain of trash. But what if we've been looking at it all wrong? Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful and, yeah, pretty controversial idea. What if we could turn that mountain of waste into a source of energy?
I mean, just think about that for a second. Every single trash bag, all that stuff we throw away, what if instead of being a problem that costs a ton of money and fills up our planet, it becomes this incredible asset that can literally heat our homes and power our businesses? It sounds almost too good to be true, and as we're about to find out, the reality is, well, it's a lot more complicated.
Okay, so here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll get the basics down on how you even turn trash into power. Then we're going to look at the high-stakes game being played in Great Britain and contrast that with an amazing, celebrated plant in Copenhagen. After that, we have to tackle the big, unavoidable carbon question, explore a potential high-tech fix, and then finally, we'll look at the two very different futures this technology could lead us to. All right, let's dive right in. What exactly are we talking about when we say power from trash? So the big idea here is something called energy from waste, or EW for short. And honestly, the concept is pretty simple. Instead of burying all the non-recyclable stuff in a landfill, you burn it in a super controlled environment to generate a massive amount of heat. That heat boils water, creates steam, and that steam can either spin a turbine to make electricity or get piped directly to buildings for heat. Sounds great, right? A solid alternative to just burying everything? But, and this is a big but, actually building one of these things, well, it's anything but simple. And that complexity, that's where our first story begins. We're heading to Great Britain, where this whole idea has turned into a really, really risky business. Yeah, over in the UK, that dream of turning waste into clean energy, it's kind of hit a brick wall. Anyone trying to get these projects off the ground, investors, developers, they're facing an absolute minefield of problems that has a lot of them wondering if these massive projects are even worth it. I mean, the money involved here is just staggering. We're talking hundreds of millions of pounds for a single plant, and it can take decades just to see a return on that investment. On top of that, things like Brexit, inflation, and supply chain chaos have sent construction costs through the roof. And the result? You've got a trail of high-profile projects that have completely failed, and get this, more than 80 projects that have been given the green light are just stuck. They haven't even broken ground. And let's say you actually manage to build one. Well, then you've got a whole new set of worries. Starting in 2028, a new carbon tax is going to slap on some serious costs. At the exact same time, the government is trying to get people to produce less waste, which means the very fuel these plants need to run is going to shrink. And then you've got other industries, like those making sustainable aviation fuel, who want that same trash. It's really a perfect storm of uncertainty. And you know, this quote from the head of the Environmental Services Association just hits the nail on the head. He's basically saying the government is changing the rules of the game, sometimes even after you think you've already won. This political meddling has sent a real chill through the whole investment community. I mean, who wants to bet hundreds of millions on a project when the goalposts can move at any second? It's making an already risky venture feel almost impossible. Okay, so while the UK is tangled up in all this risk and uncertainty, let's flip the script. We're going to Denmark to check out a power plant in Copenhagen that has become a true global icon. Okay, get a load of this. This is Copenhill. It's not tucked away in some forgotten industrial zone. Nope. It's an architectural marvel right in the heart of the city, basically just down the road from the Royal Palace. And it's not just a power plant. It's a public park, a recreation center. It's a whole different way of thinking about what these facilities can be. And this is what makes it so mind-blowing. The roof is a year-round ski slope. It has the world's tallest climbing wall on its side. And here's the key difference from the UK model. It's owned by the local cities, not private investors. And it was designed with constant input from the people who actually live there. So you end up with something that's part of the city, not just bolted onto it, all while providing heat and power to tens of thousands of homes. And this diagram just shows you how incredibly efficient this whole system is. Literally nothing goes to waste. For every 1,000 kilograms of trash that goes in one end, you get all this valuable stuff out the other. Heat, electricity, metals that can be recycled, materials for building roads, even clean water. It's a system designed from the ground up to squeeze every last drop of value out of what we throw away. So at this point, it sounds like the perfect solution, right? A fairy tale? But there's a catch. And it's a big one that affects every single one of these plants, no matter how cool they look. We have to talk about carbon. Now, this is a tough pill to swallow. A recent university study came out with a bombshell. Because our trash today is filled with so much plastic and other fossil fuel-based stuff, some of these waste-to-energy plants can actually pump out more CO2 for the energy they produce than a coal plant. So yeah, the very thing that's supposed to be a green solution could in some cases be making the climate problem worse. And we're not just talking theory here. A deep dive study into our superstar plant, Copenhill, found that for every single ton of trash it burns, it releases around 400 kilograms of CO2 that comes directly from fossil sources like plastics and synthetic clothes. That is a serious carbon footprint. So, okay, is that it then? Is the whole idea a bust because of carbon? Well, not necessarily. This very problem is pushing the industry toward a truly groundbreaking leap in technology. Let's explore what a carbon-negative future might look like. So, the magic bullet here might be a technology called carbon capture and storage, or CCS. The easiest way to think about it is like a super advanced filter on the plant's smokestack. It literally grabs the carbon dioxide before it can escape into the atmosphere. Then, that captured CO2 gets piped away and stored permanently, usually deep underground. And you want to see how powerful this technology is? Just look at these numbers for Copenhill. Before CCS, the plant is a net emitter. It adds to the climate problem. But after you bolt on carbon capture, wow, the impact just plummets, all the way to negative 700 kilograms for every ton of waste. It goes from being part of the problem to a huge part of the solution. It's a total game changer. So how is this even possible? How can it become carbon negative? Well, the system doesn't just capture the CO2 from burning plastics. It also grabs the biogenic CO2, the carbon that comes from stuff like food scraps, paper, and wood. And because that carbon was already part of the natural cycle in our atmosphere, capturing and burying it is like actively vacuuming CO2 out of the air. That's the secret sauce that lets the plant become a carbon sink. And all of this brings us back to where we started. We've seen two very different stories, two different approaches. This really isn't just about technology. It's about philosophy. It really is a tale of two futures. On the one hand, you've got the UK's model, private, profit-driven, and tangled up in a mess of financial risk and political headaches. And on the other, you have Copenhagen's model, public, community-focused, a celebrated piece of the city that people are proud of. And with this new technology, it has the potential to become an incredible tool in the fight against climate change. So in the end, it's pretty clear there's no single path forward. It all comes down to a choice between seeing waste as just fuel for a risky business or seeing it as a chance to create something truly integrated, celebrated, and maybe, just maybe, planet-saving. It's a choice that cities all over the world are facing right now. The only question is, which future will they fuel?